If you're dealing with a workplace bully right now, I want you to understand one thing before you do anything else. The person making your life miserable is running a playbook. It isn't random. It isn't personal in the way you've been telling yourself it is. It's a pattern I've watched repeat over and over for years. And the reason it keeps working is that most people never figure out what's actually happening until the damage is already done. But here's the part the bully is quietly counting on, you never realizing. The moment you can name the tactic being used on you, you take away its power. They lose their entire advantage the second you stop reacting and start responding on purpose. I'm Dre, and on this channel, we don't do the comforting fairy tale about how the workplace is supposed to work. We deal with how it actually works, so you can protect yourself inside it. I've spent a long time watching how power really moves through organizations, who gets eaten and who survives. And I'll tell you something that took me years to accept. The people who get pushed out are rarely the weakest ones in the building. They're just the ones who never saw the game for what it was. Before we get into this, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because what I'm about to hand you is not the soft, safe advice you'll get everywhere else. And I'd hate for you to find this channel once and never see it again. Quick, honest note before we go further. This is educational, not legal advice. Workplace protections, what HR is actually obligated to do, and the rules around documentation all vary depending on where you work. And a lot of what I'm about to describe reflects how things tend to operate in U.S. workplaces specifically. If you're somewhere else in the world, the psychology still holds completely, but the formal machinery may look different. So treat this as a framework, not a rule book. If you want, I can break down how this shifts for other countries another time. So let's get tactical. 5 tactics to shut down a workplace bully fast. And we're starting with the one that quietly unnerves them more than any shouting match ever could. Tactic 1. Build the paper trail. Here's the thing you have to understand about bullies. Almost everything they do depends on it being your word against theirs. They live in the gaps, the comment in the hallway, the tone in the meeting, the thing they said that you can't quite prove they said. So you close the gaps. Every meaningful interaction with this person from now on gets put in writing. And I mean every single one of them. You finish a conversation, you send a short, factual recap by email. Something like this. Following up on what we discussed this afternoon, you asked me to rebuild the full report by tomorrow morning, and I flagged that the agreed deadline was Friday, and that the new timeline isn't realistic without working through the night. I'll do what I can, but I wanted the change on record. Now notice exactly what that does. There's a time. There's a specific request. There's your response, stated plainly. And there is zero emotion anywhere in it. You're not accusing anyone of anything. You're just creating a record. Then you forward a copy to your personal email, so it lives somewhere they can never quietly delete it. Why does this work as well as it does? Because bullies despise a paper trail. Behavior that thrives on deniability tends to shrink the instant it's being written down. A lot of the time, the documentation alone changes how they treat you, because suddenly there's evidence sitting in an inbox. And if it changes nothing at all, then you're no longer the person with a vague emotional complaint nobody can act on. You're the person with a timeline, in writing, with dates attached. Tactic 2. Set the boundary out loud. Bullies are testing you constantly, probing for exactly where your edges are. And every single time you let something slide, they learn they can push a little further next time. So you stop letting it slide. But, and this is the whole skill, you do it without handing them the emotional reaction they're fishing for. Say they take a shot at your work in front of other people. You don't swallow it and you don't blow up. You say something flat and clear. I'm not okay with how that was framed. Let's keep this focused on the actual work. Say they cut you off in every meeting, every time, like clockwork. Your line is simple. I hadn't finished. I'm going to complete my point. And then you keep talking. You don't pause and wait for permission, because the moment you ask permission, you've just told them the boundary is up for negotiation. Here's what I've learned watching this play out more times than I can count. Bullies escalate against fuzzy boundaries and back away from clear ones. The entire trick lives in your delivery. Calm, even, factual. You are not pleading and you are not picking a fight. You're informing them of a line, the same way you'd state a fact about the weather. It is not a request, it's a statement, and you let it sit there. Tactic 3. Go gray rock. This one is built specifically for the kind of bully who feeds on your reaction, and an enormous number of them do. Understand the psychology first. The drama is the entire point. The flash of anger, the frustration, the flustered defensiveness, even the tears. That is the payoff they are chasing every time they poke at you. Your emotion is the fuel that runs the whole machine. So you cut off the fuel supply. You become the most forgettable, low-voltage, gray rock of a presence in that building. They poke at you about your weekend? Fine, thanks. And nothing else. They criticize how you presented something? Noted. I'll keep that in mind. And you move on. They try to drag you into gossip about a colleague? I hadn't picked up on that. And you change the subject. You are handing them absolutely nothing. No detail to twist later, no reaction to enjoy in the moment, no loose thread to pull on. I've watched this diffuse genuinely aggressive people because the whole game suddenly stops being fun for them. You've turned yourself into the most boring target in the room, and a boring target gives a bully nothing to feed on. They came looking for a spark, and you handed them wet stone. Tactic 4. Build your witnesses. You never take on a bully alone, and the good news is you don't have to. Find 3 people. One person on your team who has actually seen the behavior happen with their own eyes. One person in management or HR that you have a real reason to trust. And one person outside your immediate orbit entirely. Someone who can look at the situation without a stake in the outcome. Then you have a short, quiet conversation with each of them. Not to vent, not to start a war, but to put a marker down. Something like this. I wanted to check in about some dynamics I've been dealing with lately. I've noticed a specific pattern, and I'm curious whether you've seen anything like it. 2 things happen the moment you do this. You create people who can back up your account later, if it ever comes to that, and you find out whether you're actually alone in this, which, almost every single time, you are not. Because here's the truth about bullies that they really don't want you to discover. They very rarely have only one target. The second you start comparing notes with other people, you tend to find out the pattern is far bigger than just you. And once several people are independently describing the exact same behavior, the organization can no longer wave it away as a personality clash between 2 people. It becomes a problem they have to look at. This is not about ganging up on someone. It's about refusing to stay isolated, because isolation is the precise condition a bully needs to keep operating. Tactic 5. Have an exit ready. Because sometimes the single most powerful move on the entire board is knowing, with total certainty, that you can walk away from the table. If you've documented everything, if you've held your boundaries, if you've gone gray rock, if you've built your witnesses, and the situation genuinely still hasn't moved, then you start quietly preparing your exit. Refresh your resume. Reactivate the network you've been neglecting. Put a soft timeline on it. 3 months, 6 months, whatever is actually realistic for your life. And let me be very clear about something here, because people get this part completely backwards. Building an exit plan is not surrender. It is the exact opposite. The moment you genuinely know you have somewhere else to go, the entire dynamic shifts under your feet. Because a person who can leave simply cannot be controlled the same way as a person who feels trapped. Your career is worth far, far too much to burn it down absorbing somebody else's dysfunction. The exit plan is not you giving up. It's you taking the leverage back into your own hands. Now, before I lose you, I want to say the quiet part out loud, because it matters more than any single tactic on this list. None of this works if you stay silent and just hope it passes. Hope is not a strategy against someone who has already decided you're an easy target. Every one of these 5 moves has the exact same thing sitting underneath it. You stop being a person that things simply happen to, and you start being a person who responds with intention. The documentation, the boundaries, the gray rock, the witnesses, the exit. They are all the same single idea wearing 5 different outfits. Take back the part of this situation that is actually yours to control, and stop pouring energy into the part that never was. And understand what's really going on inside a person like this, because it changes how you see the whole thing. A bully at work is almost never operating from a place of strength. The aggression is usually covering for something: insecurity, a fear of being exposed, a quiet suspicion that they are not nearly as competent or as safe in their own position as they're pretending to be. That is exactly why the paper trail rattles them so badly. It's why a calm, immovable boundary throws them completely off their rhythm. They are simply not used to a target that doesn't flinch. The entire performance depends on you agreeing to play the role they've cast you in. And the instant you stop performing your part, their performance starts falling apart too. You don't beat a bully by becoming more aggressive than they are. That's a fight on their terms, and they have more practice at it than you do. You beat them by quietly becoming the kind of person their tactics just stop working on. And one more thing, and I really want you to hear this one. You are allowed to protect yourself without feeling guilty about it. So many genuinely decent people freeze up in this exact situation because they don't want to be dramatic. They don't want to be difficult. They keep telling themselves that maybe they're overreacting and reading too much into it. That instinct, that reflex to doubt yourself, is precisely what a bully relies on. Documenting a conversation is not dramatic. Stating a boundary out loud is not being difficult. Comparing notes with a trusted colleague is not going behind anyone's back. These are normal, reasonable, professional things, and the only reason any of them feel uncomfortable is that somewhere along the way, you got conditioned to put everyone else's comfort ahead of your own safety. Put that down. It was never your job to manage the feelings of the person actively trying to grind you down. So tell me, which one are you starting with? The paper trail? The boundary? The gray rock? The witnesses? Or the exit? Drop it in the comments, because I actually read them and I want to know where you are in this right now. If any of this helped you, subscribe so the next one finds you, because what I cover on this channel tends to be the stuff most people only learn the hard way and far too late. And if the question sitting in the back of your mind right now is whether you should stay and fight this out or start quietly planning your way out the door, watch the video I'll link right next, because breaking down that exact decision is what I do there. You've got this. I'll see you in the next one.